The state of Maine holds a lot of natural beauty. But in addition, we have a lot of unique things you'll find only in our home state. Let's take a look at some of the oddities that you'll come across when you explore Stranger Maine. Episode 2: The Desert of Maine. Freeport is well known as the home of LL Bean, and a great place to go shopping, with all the little stores on its fun Main Street. But not too far from Main Street, you'll find a farm, unlike many others you'll find here in the state of Maine. This farm has a story attached to it, a story of a curse placed by a dying man against the woman who broke her promise. This farm doesn't look like your typical farm in the state of Maine. In fact, it doesn't look like any farm you may have ever seen. Welcome to the Desert of Maine. According to the story, a man who owned this land had multiple sons, his youngest being the one who wanted to keep the family property and run it when he was old enough. Over time, the man's wife fell ill and died, and he remarried to a woman who had a son of her own. Time passed, and the farmer grew old and became sick. Knowing that he wasn't going to survive his particular illness, on his deathbed, he made his new wife promise that she would turn over the farm to his youngest son to make sure that his family kept the farm. Well, she had a different plan. Shortly after the farmer died, she did turn over the farm, but not to his son, but to her own. Her son took the farm and started using it as if it were his own, trying to raise crops, livestock, and run it because it was now, according to her, his business. It turned out, though, breaking her promise had a consequence. As her son attempted to make the land work, to grow the farm, sand started to appear. Small pieces at first, but then larger and larger deposits of it would appear in the fields, around the houses, until one day, the desert you see before you was all that was left. The newly formed desert consumed everything: the crops, the fields, the buildings. A curse from beyond the grave destroyed this land, according to legend. And it's a good story, but what really happened is equally interesting. As much fun as the story of the curse is, let's talk about the truth. What actually happened? So I'm standing inside the barn here at Tuttle Farm in Freeport, Maine. Now the Tuttles bought about 50 acres of land in the 1820s here in Freeport, in addition to about 80 they owned already in Pownell. Now John Tuttle was known as a pretty sturdy farmer, as most were, resilient, hardworking, and perhaps a bit stubborn. There's a great story I was reading that he attended a town meeting in Pownell and became so upset he declared he never wanted to come back to another one. So he had his home moved by oxen here to this property just across the line into Freeport, and thus he never had to attend another meeting in Pownell. Now, much like other farmers, they had lots of different crops, they had livestock, they were trying to make a living and keep the land working for them. In the 1860s, though, deposits of sand started to appear here and there, and over time, more of it appeared. I want to tell you what actually happened, and spoiler alert, it wasn't a deathbed curse. So let's talk about what happened here. What could have turned a vibrant, lush farm into this mess? So Mr. Tuttle and his family, while they were farming here, tried their best to make the money they could to keep everybody running. They grew a variety of crops, but they didn't take breaks in between. His fields would get worked over and over again without a rest in between. They brought in livestock, like sheep during the Civil War, which would eat the grass farther down to the ground than most other livestock would. He did a lot of logging, very lucrative business. But it turned out all these factors were breaking down the fields. The soil was eroding away. And underneath it all was this. And while this appears to be sand, it's not. glacial silt. This is a remnant of the glaciers that would have been sitting here hundreds of thousands of years ago, shaping this land into what it is. And unfortunately, with his decisions, he inadvertently released it, burying his farm. By the late 1890s, this place was abandoned. It was known as a sand farm in the area, and families would come here and walk along the dunes and have picnics. The Tuttles were doing the best they could. They wanted to keep their farm running. They wanted to work the fields and provide for family. But unfortunately, through mismanagement, he turned it into a wasteland. So why tell you this? Why not just stick with the fun bedside curse story? Well, stories are good. But if we don't keep our history, it too will erode away and will blow away, just like this farm.